Hello guys, and welcome to the Sprint 58 release meeting. It's called the Journey to the Christmas Star, according to the Christmas topic. And let's start. Let's take a look at our Trello board, which I'm not sharing with you yet. Okay. So let's start with an interesting topic, which is the spread the word about avocado QEMU with Amador. Can you please give us some story about it?
Yeah, sure. Well, some time ago, we started creating the so-called avocado-QEMU soup framework, which is basically an structure inside the QEMU repository that will use avocado and create some structure to reduce the boilerplate on creating tests for virtual machines using QEMU. And last week, I guess, we sent our first email to QEMU Devel list advertising this work. It's still something that's in our repository, not in official QEMU repository, but that's the main intention of the initial email, talking about this project, which is collecting feedback and shaping the code so we can get something really strong with good foundations to propose it to the QEMU upstream. Let me just share my screen and then show a little bit more what I'm talking about.
By the way, that could serve also like a reference implementation of testing of a like more complex component for you.
Yeah, that's right. This is the email it was sent a few days ago by Kleber to QEMU Devel list, and it's explaining what the project is about and also showing some ways to use the code base with a bunch of references. But basically what we have is a fork repository of QEMU. This was forked by me, so we are using this as our base repository to developing this. Sorry?
Okay, sorry, it was hanged and now I can see the correct window.
Okay, and this repository, I mean, the branch master is in sync with QEMU upstream, but there is a branch called avocado-QEMU. And if you take a look at this branch at the commit list, you'll see a lot of activity because we are sending our code on top of QEMU, but using this avocado-QEMU branch. And to consume this code, I mean, to provide us feedback and to use the code that we are creating here to create tests for QEMU using this avocado-QEMU sub-framework, we created an even simpler branch called avocado-QEMU snapshot. It contains only one commit with all those commits squashed together in this only one commit. And to make it even simpler to consume, we created this eternal pull request containing only that commit. And with these pull requests in place, it's easy to just curl the patch for that commit and applying it on top of your QEMU repository. So let me demonstrate this really quickly. I have to change my screen. Okay, so here I got the QEMU repository. It's just the entire QEMU repository, and here I will just create a test branch to apply that patch on top of it. So I will execute this command. This command was described in that pull request. It will basically get a patch with the whole code all together and apply on top of your QEMU repository. And with that in place, you can navigate to the directory tests, avocado, and here we have that structure. I'm talking about the avocado QEMU directory with the subclass implementation. And also we have some tests serving as examples of what can be done with these this code base. So let's take a look at this one. It is basically creating an avocado test as usual, but here inside the test class, we have some new APIs. The most important of them is self.vm. This is the virtual machine. You can add some options to the QEMU command line. In this example, I'm acquiring a virtual machine image from an external repository. I'm customizing that virtual machine image. I'm extending the QEMU options that will be applied for this virtual machine. So really quickly going through the test codes. At some point, I will get the console of that virtual machine. I will execute some commands inside that virtual machine, and I will make sure that the output of that command matches with some string that I'm expecting to have. After that, I'm migrating that virtual machine, and I'm executing the same command over again to make sure the output of that command is still the same after the migration. So this is just an example on how to create a test using the avocado QEMU. The most important points here is that we have this self.vm object here with some very useful methods like get console or migrate. And with all those in place, you can just run with avocado run. And that test, let me open a new window here to follow with the log. Just get the log here. Let's see what's happening. Oh, wrong file. Run again and get the log. Okay, now we have it. It's basically fetching the image to run that test. And after that, it will try to customize it and to use and to execute all those commands on top of the image that's being acquired. So that's basically it. It will take some time to execute that test, but I just wanted to show you that it is possible to basically get the patch from the pull request, apply on top of your QEMU repository, local repository, and then start using Avocado. Of course, if you don't have Avocado installed in your system, you have to go through the install steps in advance, but there is a README file in that repository, so you can take a look and provide us some feedback.
Looks good.
Okay, and for those who are not interested in QEMU testing, obviously they can just take a look at the class and how they can integrate like Avocado and like some extra helpers in projects. Anyway, so that's for the Avocado QEMU project. By the way, that is why we kept postponing some releases recently. And next card is discuss a way to control the export of parameters as environment variables. So I think you probably saw the RFC by Amador. It's being discussed. So ideally join the discussion because so far we have done just two approaches or two ideas there. And actually, one of them is to change the current behavior. So if you are using it, if you're using environment variables, do join the discussion. And then we have issues, sysinfo not getting collected, post-test guest run. There was a report by some user that sysinfo is not getting collected. We got to a point that we think that he's using avocado VT to run the QEMU, but we don't have a response yet. So we're tracing the issue there. But we were not able to reproduce it without using avocado VT. Next, we have enabled parallel check on Travis. Yeah, it should give us fast response in Travis, but beware if you see some odd failures, don't hesitate to ask because it may be related to this. Hopefully not. Probably broken MOOC's path. Yeah, Amador actually verified that it was actually me misusing it incorrectly. So it's not broken, it behaves correctly. Then we have bug is installed properly defined data files, which is sandbox evaluation. This wasn't easy. And I don't know whether Kleber wants to say something about it, but basically, the problem is that on some ways of installing, easy install can be used. And when you use easy install to install packages, it does not allow writing outside of the package directory. For example, to create /etc config files or libexec files in /user. Kleber actually took care of most of it, and the benefit is that right now Avocado creates everything inside the package as you would get from usual Python packages, which also allowed us to create the wheel package for it. But if you use RPMs to install Avocado, you still get the usual locations like /etc, and it's being produced by the spec file. The only difference you can see, let me share screen, is that if you hack Avocado, you can see that we have in release 57, we had the etc files here and the libexec files, right? And the setup PY contained actually lines like this for data files, data files, data files, to basically define all the files that should be attached to Avocado on distribution time. I'm checking out the exec path location because there is one fix, which probably will make it into this release. You won't see any etc files or libexec files. They are not here, but everything is inside the package file, which is necessary to package it in the same location with everything. And we have the etc. Okay. Apart from that, if you are using exec path, how is it called? If you are using those, for example, libexec files, the works well the same way, but the location may change. But if you keep hard coding the /userlib exec avocado, then your scripts may be broken. I mean, it will work for RPM installs, but it won't work for pip installs.
And
And that's kind of the whole purpose of avocado path initially. We came up with
Yes.
that
Yep.
just so that people wouldn't rely on it.
Yeah, but I'm letting you know that if you happen to use the hard-coded path, it may break.
Mm-hmm.
I had one more thing in my mind, but I think I forgot it. Never mind.
So yeah, the general direction that we took here was like try to make avocado for Python users more like Python package. Do not try to go anything beyond the basic data files
Self-contained.
that the data files that the Python module itself actually need, or the scripts as a Python, like as an application that happens to be written in Python will also need. So everything that goes beyond that, it's going to be handled by separate layers. There were some cleanups also in regards to what we put in the binary distribution files. Like if you do a make um, dist and it creates a tarball, which is a compiled file, we used to put stuff there that wasn't really needed as a binary distribution. And there were a few things lacking on the source tarball. Like when you do Python setup.py sdist, even though we don't rely on that ourselves, we generate source tarballs from Git archive. If people happen to do that, they wouldn't get all the files that would be necessary to, from that source tarball, actually install or generate a binary tarball or things like that. So getting everything right when it comes to distribution and creating binary and source packages is a bit hard, especially because our CI is a bit limited with regards to how we deploy avocado. Like we are not testing like installation through all those alternative methods, like using install, using pip, using setup.py, building RPMs at the same time. We should really improve on that. But we do feel it's simpler to follow now. So there are a few use cases in which installing avocado was just plainly broken. You wouldn't be able to install it like on a non-virtual environment running as a regular user. You just wouldn't be able to install it, and now it's supposed to be a smooth installation. So I think there are a few things there.
Sure. The cleaner, the better. Thing
Yep.
is, sometimes it's difficult to see where you are going to use certain installation methods, which installation methods you're allowing people to use, and yeah, that's a can of worms that you open. And but yeah, great job that you guys are doing. Cleaning up that stuff and making it installable using easy install. It's a very worthwhile addition.
Okay. By the way, I remembered what I wanted to say. You still have the /etc avocado config files, but also you get /user /lib/python side packages avocado etc files. And those files are basically the original ones, and they are, I mean, the origins, they are the core and they will be respected. If you create a /etc, it will be also respected. So just imagine that there is like yet another config file which can live there. So if you modify it, the /etc takes precedence, right, Kleber? But this one also exists because that's the Python pip original file actually.
So I was looking recently at making Avocado VT more compliant with the other plugin conventions used for the other plugins that Avocado has, like renaming it to avocado-framework-plugins-vt. And I am preparing a few patches for your consideration because I'm trying to make it so that if someone wants to run Avocado VT from a virtual environment and a requirements file, it should be possible to do that. So you would
pip -r requirements.txt. It pulls all the dependencies, the Python dependencies, and then you run avocado vt bootstrap, and everything would work.
Actually, we
yeah,
may be
that's
clashing because that's the point of this card, and actually there is a related another card, and there is already pull request in avocado vt which sets all the requirements, as well as there is autotest fix, because we still avocado vt still depends on autotest, and which fixes the same issue, basically creating non-package files.
Okay, so yeah, if there's a pull request that progressed more than the pull request I have here, then great.
I mean, probably not, because I'm not cleaning anything. I'm just moving the stuff, and like in the same manner as this, like just not creating the files or moving them to the correct locations.
Of course, there's the bigger can of worms, which is removing entirely the original autotest dependencies in the code. I mean, it's a lot of code, and of course that will be interesting, but yeah, it's a lot of code, and we have to thoroughly test it before we make the jump.
I would really love that. And it's a lot of code, but I don't think that much of the code is still used.
Right. It's I suppose it's something that can be semi-automated. We do, we do automated replacement of all the calls, but then we have to sort of use a lot of static checking to make sure that we're, replacing it by the right, using the right parameters and stuff.
Anyway, any other ideas about that?
Yeah, so Lucas, I just suggested you take a look at what Lucas has pushed so far. I mean, it has paused for a while since we were fixing stuff on Avocado itself. So maybe I don't know. It looks like you have more cleanups. So maybe you can cherry pick from his commits and send a bigger pull request on top of that.
Okay. Well, the ones that I was hoping to get applied by this release were the software manager patches, which are very small and needed bug fixes. For the other ones, I'm not sure if we can make it, at least for this release, we can look into the next release. But sure, I'll take a look and see what I can do.
Yeah.
Well, probably not for this release. Hopefully,
bigger changes are coming.
Yeah, for the software manager, if possible, I would ask you guys to take a look and maybe get that in.
Yeah, it looks good to me. I just posted one last question, which is a small thing, and you are the guy to answer that, since I cannot. So if you say this is the way to go, we'll get it moved.
Sure.
Okay. So the next one is to publish avocado in wheel format by Kleber. As you mentioned, it was accomplished. Great. Then we have YAML downloader misbehaves when in TTY mode. So if you want to learn about some nice TTY issues, you can read it, but basically we don't depend on that feature anymore, so we are safe. Then we have bug make spell broken. It was addressed by Amador and now is passing properly. We have avocado VT Travis CI failing. Yeah, we had like 2 weeks of all Travis CI jobs failed, and it was addressed.
Oh, really? Wow.
By Lucky H. By Zoo. Yeah, actually, nice commit. I did not understand how those failures could be related, but they are. Include our JOS repository as an utils VM image provider. So, I mean, recently you saw some VM image provider demonstrations. So now the JOS, which is like minimized Fedora, really small one. So it's available there, so you can start using it. And by the way, Fedora 27, the JOS 27, which is based on Fedora 27, is available on all main architecture. Broken hyperlink to latest release. Yeah, that was just inconvenience. And there is
actually,
this.
I think it was a misunderstanding.
Yeah, misunderstanding. So yeah, there is the sprint theme. So if you're in a Christmas mode, you can watch this movie. Whoa, any questions so far? On IRC or no? So let's proceed with the work in progress. We still have a bug, which is the JOS 27 related, and that is that it uses a bad name. For years, the 64 was the name for x86-64 images, but the JOS 27 tried to use the arch name for all the names. So yeah, in this pull request, I'm trying to change it because at this point, x86 Avocado VT does not with JOS 27 does not work at all on x86-64, and it works on all other architectures. So yeah, we hope to get this merged or declined and fix the other way around anyway. Hopefully in this release, the 27 JOS will be the default because it's not yet. Next, we have libexec scripts not being installed, and that is why I checked out my code and not the master, because we included in packages and package data the etc config files, but we forgot about the libexec. So I'm addressing this bug here. Then Kleber worked on declaring 36 LTS end of line, but he still needs to finish that, right?
Actually, I meant to write an email and send it upstream, and I was thinking about if we should or shouldn't actually remove the packages to avoid people installing like 36 LTS. It's one of those situations in should we know better than the user or not? So I put that up for a discussion there. But anyway, it's not urgent, but it's past due, so it's something that we should be doing like right away. I'll be doing it.
Okay. From my side, I wouldn't remove it because people may want to get it. But yeah, it's a tough one. Next, we have single data there, get TMP there, per interpreter breaks multiple jobs. Yeah, I just moved it and haven't tackled it. We discussed the way to do it, but I'll resume next sprint. Dockerfile used the new repo to get avocado. Last sprint release, you may have noticed that we have new server up and running, which has more storage and is faster and newer, and more importantly, it will work even in the next month, which is not the situation for the old ones. So we need to change the Docker file to use that file, that new server. Next one is the add partial LTS related changes to docs from 55 to 57. We actually forgot about these. So basically, we have a documentation of upcoming LTS to not forget about anything. Next, we have picked broken with UTF-16. Kleber, do you want to say something about that?
Yeah, so I actually did a lot of work there. I actually shared some of the weirdness that I got with a coworker. It had to do with a lot of how C++ uses like different functions to handle wide characters, and how I wrote a few reproducers. And it's just like amazing. It's just like funny how when you use those functions that are supposed to retrieve wide chars, and you read from a source which is supposed to have white chars, and you do not give instructions on the char set, it just returns empty stuff. So it looks like it does not assume anything. So if you use those functions, it won't read anything from files. I tried a few different functions to read one char at a time, to read a line at a time,
So
and the strange.
you
Yeah,
have to
and the
pass
strange.
UTF-8 to every function call.
It's not, it looks like you have to set up the encoding that you want from the streams, and on C++, it's like a file is one kind of stream, so stream is a base thing. There's cache, there's streams, and there's files, and the standard input and output, and there are also streams. So it looks like you have to configure a stream to actually get white char content out of it. But the weird thing is that pict, which is completely written in C++, and it looks like the author knows, at least he knows a lot more than I do about that. He actually wrote a lot of functions to actually work around encoding. So there are functions that check the encoding type of a file, and they read one byte at a time, and they try to like handle the encoding. So there are two issues on upstream pict with a few people participating, and it looks like not many people know how to. I mean, there hasn't been anyone out there who has given an authoritative answer on how to handle that. So the code base does a lot of manual stuff. And then from what I've seen, C++ itself, like C++11, has a lot of that in itself. So I would guess that on the Microsoft side, since that guy is primarily using Microsoft compilers, the behavior could be different. They could assume an encoding, and that's why they get content out of the calls they're using. And on like GNU Linux side, things don't work the same way. So I have a reproducer, and the next step is actually to try out the setting of default encoding and see if that bug goes away. So it was an interesting journey, like a lot of time spent, a lot of weirdness in the air, but nothing actually fixed at this point. But we're getting close to that. So.
Okay. By the way, isn't it time now to just remove the UTF-16 checks and say it's not UTF-16 compatible for RPM packaging, then package it?
Oh,
eventually.
Actually, it's a wider problem. It's not like UTF-16. It's just one example, but it's like any kind of encoding which is wide fails.
Okay. Yeah. Next, we have the defaults to recursive by Amador. No main update or?
Yeah, I'm failing to deliver this card for a few sprints now. It's mainly because I have to allocate some time for it. The main problem with the implementation we have right now is that if you tag the test class as recursive, then the loader knows that it has to recursively discover all the parent classes. But when you remove the tag feature and you tell Avocado that it has to figure out by itself if it's an Avocado instrumented test class or not. And in the same file, the same Python file, you have an Avocado test class, which is not marked with that tag. And it's actually inheriting from an upper class, which inherits from Avocado test. And you have different classes that are not inheriting from Avocado test class. It's hard to get it right. I mean, to do it recursively for all of them and still differentiate between an Avocado inherited test class and a non-Avocado inherited test class in the same file. So I just have to work out this file, this use case, this corner case that we have, and provide a new version covering those cases. But yeah, probably this sprint, there will be a new pull request for this.
Okay.
Fair enough.
Then we have picked, package it as an RPM. Yeah, that depends on the previously set UTF-16 cars.
Yeah.
What about Enterprise Linux? Is there any possible chance that it gets accepted in Trello?
You mean avocado?
No, the picked.
Oh yeah. So
variant.
yeah. So the first step is of course to get it on Fedora, and I would guess on Fedora people would want to have the self-test running. That's like per definition one of the things that you should have on an RPM. So that's why it depends on fixing Unicode support, because the self-test actually tests that and that fails on Linux. So that's why that's the way we're going. So we want to fix the self-tests to get the package on Fedora and EPEL, and if that gets accepted, then like on enterprise Linux, like on Red Hat, it's of course an internal process, but it's actually something that we've talked about possibly in the future with regards to avocado itself. So yeah, it's a possibility, but that's how it is.
Mhm.
Okay, then we have avocado VT at avocado and other requirements. That's exactly the card, Lucas, I was talking about. Yeah, right now it's waiting for the auto test fix, and I need to test it more thoroughly, and it's waiting for you. And then I can send
Is there a pull request that I need to review in auto test?
Yeah, there is.
Okay.
But I mean, it's there. I tested it, sort of tested it, but I'll write to. I'll try to retest it like more thoroughly because it's like kind of bigger size. But it seems to work fine for the basic use cases like virtual and or system-wide make link. So okay.
Sure.
And then I can do this, and then I can try. Yeah, and I was actually waiting for this one to have the avocado with the fixes available in pip, because then I can easily install and use the avocado VT in that way, which used to be failing, and it should start working.
Yeah, so sorry, I haven't seen this, so gonna get in. I'm gonna review it.
Yeah, it's a new one, so don't. It's not waiting for a long time. Don't worry. So yeah, hopefully, I mean the reason I'm doing all this, or we are doing all of this, is to be able to create virtual environment and say I require avocado VT and start avocado VT.
Yep.
And hopefully no files outside of the virtual environment should be created. No files should be used outside of an environment, and it should all live in there.
Right.
With some assets file exception, but yeah.
I hope that in the future we can maybe drop all the distro specific packages and use Flatpak, but yeah, I think that's pretty much impossible. So never mind.
Don't go in that direction. I mean, into that discussion.
Sure.
I'm not a.
Is there a pull request with the avocado VT changes that you mentioned, or because I have a branch here, but
it's attached, I think. Yes. I mean, I'm not sure whether it contains all the fixes, but it contains the requirements. I mean, it's the other way around. Maybe it's a different fix than you have in mind.
Mm-hmm. It's mostly, standardizing naming and things like that.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, looking forward for the improvements.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and last thing, work in progress, is this ugly bug we have that when some process is writing directly to file descriptor 1 or 2, it is still being printed out. And yeah, we are still working on that. because it's like a conceptual fix. I mean, we could hackishly fix it. We do have pull requests for that, but the intention is to do it properly. And that's it. So hopefully, you know what. So this will hopefully come to the next release, and we have still we already prioritized and add cards to the backlog number 59. So let's go through them quickly. We have the enable W in Travis make check. Yeah, we don't want to ignore warnings and errors and so on. Then we have the pass rate in HTML button does not include warn tests. Yeah, basically, if you have the HTML report, it can say that 0 tests actually passed, even though we do consider warn as passed. So it makes sense to calculate all the good results as passed. Then we have deprecate test SRC there. Yeah, we actually discussed it a lot and said that the self.src there is not really useful because we have the work there and TMP there, which should be used rather than this. So it will be deprecated. Then we have support dumping loading variants from or to files. Basically, when you run Avocado with some variants, you have to calculate the variants and then run the variants one by one. But if you do want to do it multiple times, or if you want to offload this to a different machine, for example, because you run those multiple tests remotely, it may be a good idea to dump the variants and then just load them, because it should be faster and easier.
Sure.
Actually, this does not require any new functions, because we already do that. We are dumping the variants for the replay or diff features. So it's just a matter of allowing users to do it. So maybe the heads up is that in job data / variants or so, you have quite nice serialization of those.
Yeah, this came from people trying or testing softwares with a huge number of parameters that have to create a great deal of combinations, and it's very compute intensive. So it makes sense to offload this compute intensive process of creating the variants in a different machine other than the machine under test itself. Sometimes the machine under test, they are not, they don't have many resources, or they don't have like many CPU or memory to create all those. So the intention here is to dedicate the testing, the testing machine to be tested, and not to compute anything else other than the test itself.
Amador, I remember you mentioned some like really amazing numbers in the number of combinations. Like, just for the record, do you remember those?
Yeah, it's like thousands of combinations. Actually, that mention was regarding the combinatorial testing, and the very high compute intensive process is to create combinations for TLS testing above of 5-way combinatorial. So above of 5-way combinatorial, it takes like years to compute, and that's another problem. We have to enable Avocado to compute those variations, those combinations in a multi-threading approach, but still this is very compute intensive. And another like issue we have is that doing such combinations, doing such computing in machines under test is like unfeasible. So that's the intention of this card specifically.
Yeah, although I remember Cartesian used to have this problem, but then the algorithm to calculate the variance was changed, and it massively improved. And pretty much required and removed the need to cache the generated variants. So I don't know. Yeah, we'll have to take a look. But sure, I suppose caching the variants is a good thing to do.
I mean, we do it already, so it's just a matter of allowing them to use those instead of creating them.
Providing entry points. Yeah.
Okay, next one is broken Python 2.6 check on avocado VT. Yeah, and if I remember correctly, then we don't guarantee provide 2.6 compatibility, so probably, unless we see it's really simple, we will just disable.
Actually,
that's right.
I think what we settled on was a bit different. Like, we talked to most of the avocado VT developers and users, and they said that they would be okay with moving 2.2 towards 2.7, so dropping 2.6. But we haven't taken any measure to declare that avocado VT is now. But we could do that. So we have the green light on their side. So
yeah, that's what I mentioned. We don't guarantee
right
2.6, which means we can just remove the check.
Yeah, probably removing the check is a good idea. If we are to use Python 2, which we shouldn't into 2018, it's better to require the latest one. And yeah.
Yeah, ideally we should start Python 3 and Python 2.7, but
totally.
so far Avocado is not prepared.
Yeah, step by step. It's legacy. We have to keep moving things in a way that doesn't break, other use cases, and that takes a little bit of time.
Yeah, just look at the number of commits on Avocado itself about Python 3. I bet it's like 5 times more than we thought there would be. So
yep. And yeah, 2020 is around the corner. But I'm pretty sure there will be a lot of complaints and people are going to fork Python 2 to continue using Python 2. But yeah, hopefully that won't be on us, right?
yeah.
Well, Avocado VT is a different story, but we need to. Avocado, I mean, if I remember correctly, Clover, correct me if I'm wrong, but we would like to declare Python 3 support in this sprint, right? In the next one, I mean, the 58.
Yeah, I mean, it was the goal for the last 2 sprints, I guess. So we missed 2. We're gonna miss this third one. I'm biased, but like I would say we are close. We had a pull request with like core avocado passing all the unit tests on Python 3. It brought some side effects on Python 2, so it's not just like make it work on the Python 3, but make it like the changes work on both versions. But I would bet some of my money that we will get that done by the next.
Yep.
There's hope.
Conferences. Okay, next card is actually robot has syntax issues under Python 3. Yeah. Well, one would say that it's a robot issue, but of course we are concerned. Then we have obsolete get CPU arch and S2 functions instead. Basically, if you are using util CPU get CPU arch, it is pretty inconsistent, and we know that for many years. And we still said, okay, backward compatibility, but it's more and more painful with more and more architectures being tested and used in Avocado. So the idea, unless you think it's completely nonsense, is to make this deprecated and support it with some notice for a while. I would say till the next LTS. and add two functions. One would get the model, which is like power 6, power 7, power 8, basically how to get CPU arcworks for power, and then to return the architecture, which is how it works for the other architectures like i386 or x86-64 or AR64, etc. So,
right, totally.
yeah, if you have anything against, feel free to comment.
Yeah, I don't think there will be, but it's yeah, it's basically this function was implemented from previous Autotest code, and people from IBM started adding some extra ifs to recognize power processors. Yeah, it's a mess, and we need to fix it.
Yep, like one of them should be simply the platform machine, because it's standard way to like discover on which machine you are, and then we can get have a function to get like the actual CPU processor, like not the CPU processor but the CPU like model or so. Anyway, next one we have enable HTTPS on our repo server. As I mentioned, we have a new repo server, but unfortunately it does not go with HTTPS. So Kleber, hopefully we're counting on you with that, because it's not really convenient and nice to have it that way. But the old server will be decommissioned, if I remember correctly, at the end of this month or on the 8th of the next month. Yes.
No, it's at the end of this month.
Okay. And last one is here from the last sprint, and it's to define and improve sources of test params. So we discussed that already. Probably no new feature, but only making the actual existing features clean and separated. So no abuse of mux inject. So yeah, that is the plan. Amador, do you have the name already?
Yes, I do. I'm writing it down.
Okay, so last notice, unless Kleber wants to say more, but he's on vacation, so he promised to package everything, but be patient.
Yeah, I mean, we usually try to send the announcement either at the end of the day or early in the next day, unless we have like last minute bugs to handle. At this time, like building the packages, which is something that I usually do because we have to sign with some key and it happens to be the like my key at this time. So yeah, you just give me a little more time maybe, but it really shouldn't take much longer than usual. Yeah.
Enjoy the vacation.
Thanks.
Yep, enjoy the vacation and thank you for joining the meeting. By the way, Amador and me will be available next or this week on developer conference in Brno. So if you happen to go there, feel free to meet us. And see you in 3 to 4 weeks.
All right, guys.
With the lobster.
With the lobster. See you guys. Bye.
Hey guys.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.